Welcome to the mixing room. I'm Daniel.
I'm Trent, and if you have been following this show, then you know that we are Belmont alum.
Yes, we are.
One experience that I had while we were at Belmont was an incredible trip to London to do some music production, specifically In Sync, which is...
The band?
Oh, In Sync. I didn't even think about that. So sync music is when you are creating a song that is going to then be synced up to something visual, usually a movie, TV show, video game, something like that. So it is a little bit different than the process of creating music for an artist or a band, which is something that we will get to talk about later with our guest today. But there was a lot that went into this London trip. We got music history in Liverpool, all sorts of things.
Music history in Liverpool. You got to go to Abbey Road, I take it?
Yes. So, of course, going to Liverpool, we learned a ton about the Beatles. And then while we were in London, we also went to Abbey Road Studios and got a tour of all of the studios there. Of course, Abbey Road, an incredibly historic studio.
Has that place been renovated over the years?
I'm sure there's been upkeep and the like. But all of the... actually, in fact, there was some stuff being worked on while we were there. But the most historic studios, Studio A and B, are more or less the same as they would have been.
Did you get to demo anything in there?
Oh my gosh, that would be incredible. But we were there before operating hours because it is still a operating studio, and we do not make nearly enough to be tracking anything there. So no, we were there before open hours.
Gotcha. That's still awesome though, dude. I mean, the studios that Belmont gets you into, I mean, if you get the chance to even just tour Abbey Road, and then here in town, Belmont owns Ocean Way, which is a historic church that's been renovated into a studio. Some great recording spaces, and quite honestly, I wish today's guest got the chance to record at Abbey Road, because I think she would have done some really good stuff with it.
Absolutely. Today's guest is definitely a special one. She has been working on her artist career for a while now and has several songs out.
Yeah, and along the way, even debated kind of going just straight to the writing route and kind of into that sync route. And she still kind of plays in both fields, but I think you're going to really enjoy this conversation hearing about, her kind of navigating that. She put out an EP back in 2022 and has put out a handful of singles in the years since. And that EP, when she put that out, we actually opened for her at that release show.
We did.
And so we're excited to ask her about that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, without further ado, we would like to welcome Amalia Fleming onto the show.
Well, Amalia, it's so great having you here. Welcome to the mixing room.
Thank you guys for having me.
Our pleasure. So what have you been up to lately as far as like writes or shows or sort of the creative process?
Yeah, so when I graduated from Belmont in May, last May, I started off with okay, my goal is to do at least 2 writes a week, sometimes even 3, just be consistent with it. And I did that for about probably five months up until December. And it was great. I found my craft really start to grow. Whereas when I was at Belmont, I was interning at Sony 22 hours a week, and then in the publishing house, and then doing classes, doing it all. So I really didn't have the time to dedicate to the craft or the artistry. I mean, I could have cut the time for it, but being social and all that was taking the forefront at the time.
Well, you got to live a life too.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I was still discovering exactly where do I want to spend my time in the industry? Upon graduation, I want to be confident in the decision I'm making of at least where to start off. Am I going to be going full artist career or songwriter? Am I going to go be in the publishing side and do music when I want to do music and perform and all of that? And really what Sony and that internship showed me is before I can go support anyone else's career, I have to give mine a full shot and do it as long as I'm enjoying it. And I think that's been the biggest piece of motivator for me is the mindset of getting up, and it's a lifestyle. It's not about reaching a point where I get famous or I have a big enough fan base to make a living. I'm waking up every day with the desire to do this as my living. And technically I'm already doing that professionally. I'm getting up, I'm doing these co-writes that all the songwriters that, you know, are already making their full livings off of it, or they're performers and they're signed, are doing. So if I'm enjoying that, then that's all that matters. And that's the mindset I've been in, is like, it's a lifestyle. It's not reaching a point to when you make it. Yeah. So that's
so beautifully put, that it has to be that kind of, because if you're going to be in it for the long term, you kind of have to view it that way, because if you're putting mile markers out there of, I have to hit this mark, I have to get to that. If you don't, then I feel like it's so dejecting and de-energizing. And then, like you said too, you have to have like a social life on top of that, like not have to, but want to, and like need to, like just to be a person. So like how, I guess, these co-writes, how do you stay artistically like engaged and energized and charged? Because you can say, yes, I wake up every day and I want to do this. That doesn't mean
it doesn't always
right.
happen.
There's not always a full tank of gas there. So how do you keep that process fresh?
Yeah. There's so many of those days. I mean, it happens often for every artist and every songwriter, where they wake up and then you have this like guilt feeling of, why do I not want to do this today? You know, am I meant to be doing this? Everyone else seems like they want to do it every single day and they're loving it. And that was a big struggle for me. And when I was interning at Sony, it was like, I'm not feeling the same drive that I feel like everyone else is feeling. I'm feeling exhausted. I'm feeling burnt out. And I just want to go home and take a nap, or be in my room and read a book. And once I graduated, everything changed, because it's like, oh, I actually have all the hours of the day, besides the ones that I have to actually make money now for, to dedicate to my craft. And now that I've been doing it consistently, I feel like the biggest source of inspiration for me is going out in nature. It's how I grew up, was, you know, close to the beach in Morro Bay, California, on the Central Coast. And my family, like, we spent a lot of time just being outdoors. And my mom always taught me, like, you know, if you're having a bad day, if you're feeling down, go for a walk. Even if you're sick, even if, you know, you have a ton of shit to do today, like, go outside and you're going to feel better. And that's like, I will wake up and be like, okay, I know I need some source of inspiration. I got 2 writes tomorrow, and I've got to find something that ignites me, and getting outside does that. Same thing with reading books, reading poetry, or just like picking up the guitar and humming something and throwing some words out there. And sometimes your subconscious knows more than you do about, like, you know, what's the right thing for you to write that day, and concepts that you wouldn't even have come up with.
Yeah. We've talked about doing shows potentially in the future somewhere outdoors and having like little clip-on mics, just because like a day like today, the day that we're taping this, it was beautiful outside, and we've been holed up in here pretty much all day.
I know, it's the worst. You're like, oh.
We open the windows in between, in between guests, just to get some fresh air in. But I mean, absolutely to what you said as far as like getting in touch with nature and stuff, right? Like to find a new level of inspiration and motivation.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's pretty special. I think like when I was, like, the defining moment, I don't really tell the story anymore because it's just so long ago, but I was 9 and I was walking like I think it was like a President's Day or something like that, where we had the Monday off, and my family was like, we're going hiking, like, we're going out to our favorite spot. And I was 9. I was walking behind. I was kind of like singing a song. That's what I would always do, is just start humming things and make up a song on the trail. And I was looking down, and I saw a $100 bill on the ground. And I'm 9 years old. I'm like, this is $1 million, right? So I picked it up, and my entire family had managed to walk by it. And I pick it up. We ended up looking around, see, if it was anyone's. But I put it away, saved it for, like, at some point I'm going to buy something great. And that summer I went to a local music festival where I did, like, an open mic, and I sang a cappella my first original song. The song was called I Don't Know How to Write a Song. It was very innovative. But I saw all these girls with their guitars, and I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to spend my money on. So I took that $100 bills, and I went and bought a, like, small travel Luna guitar that I still have. And that, like, started a lot for me, because I was writing these melodies and coming up with them, lyrics, but once I got the guitar, I was like, okay, I feel like a musician now. So yeah, that's just being out in nature. That's led me to that.
Wow, that's an awesome story.
Yeah.
And later looked back, it was Ben Franklin's birthday. And who's
What?
on the $100 bill? I'm like, was it intentional? I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But it was life-changing one way or the other.
It sure was. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really special. So you've got a lot of cool projects that you're working on as an artist and otherwise. One that's pretty unique that I wanted to ask about was writing for Sync, which we kind of got introduced to at the same time, which is pretty neat. So what can you share about that experience?
Yeah. So, when we were in London, we were in the songwriting practicum program where you were in the audio engineer side. And I had some introductions to sync through just songwriting classes and seminars. But I hadn't really had a full understanding of, what is it like to write professionally for sync and consistently for it. And when we were on that trip, we got introduced to a company called The Nerve. And they're a sync agency. So they have a catalog where you can, if you do an album for them, your album will sit in their catalog and they will pitch it, as well as music supervisors can go and peruse the catalog and see if, they want to place anything. And I felt like that trip to London really brought me back to the love of songwriting and co-writing again. And I was a junior, so it's almost been it's been 2 years. That's crazy. Yeah. That flew by.
Yeah.
But yeah, I loved the rights that I had. That we had 3 songs in 3 days, and then we had to go in the studio and produce all 3 in 3 days. And it was an amazing experience, and I loved the songs that we wrote, and I loved the people I wrote them with. And I think it was a different experience. It was a different environment, to get out of Nashville, out of the Belmont bubble and be somewhere new. And I think that really helped, because when I came back in the fall, I was like, I gotta do this, I gotta not be afraid. And this was on the artist side as well as with sync, but I'm holding myself back because I'm so afraid of it not going in my favor and of it not working out that I am not even going for it at all. Because I'd rather, say, I'm doing it on the side, I write, but I'm not giving it my everything. That's why I'm not huge yet, right? And so now it's this owning of I'm going for it, and yeah, I only have 2,000 followers right now, but trusting that the music is going to eventually reach the right audience and connect with people. So back to sync, I love that that's a part of my artistry, my songwriting now, because it is the perfect break from, when I go into a write and I'm either writing for another artist or for myself, and there's this pressure to create something so memorable that's gonna be a hit. And I love those days because you might create something magical. But I love the days when I go into a sync write and I've already done 2 artist writes that week, and I'm like, okay, I can write a song about something really general, something that's doesn't have to be magical. It just has to be simple enough to connect with a large amount of people and to be applicable to many different placements in film and TV. And I now where I'm at, because when I started writing for sync really since London, but truly I got into it after I graduated in June and in July, because The Nerve offered me to do a 6-song album for them, which I was excited about. I'm like, you know what, this is an opportunity, a way to get my foot in the door. So it's taken time to find the right producer to work with, because we do everything 50-50. You split the album, you pull your weight, and I'm almost finished with the first 2 songs, and the next 4 are gonna come out quickly. We're in a process where we've got the system down and we're ready to get these songs there. So
well, and we appreciate you taking time out of that process to be here and talk to us a little bit about it.
Of course.
And you alluded to in there that struggle in decision making, or perhaps not in decision making, but in embracing the idea of being an artist, and how it's easy to and I know over the years we've had conversations as I feel like in some ways gone back and forth on that. And so I just want to take our audience back to perhaps right now you're fully embracing some of those elements of artistry. And there was a time where there was a lull in that, but before that, there was an EP called Shifting States.
Yes.
And anybody, if people are listening to this who know us, they may not know this. We opened for you at that release show.
True.
Wait, let's make it better for our audience. We opened for you at that release show, which happened to be at Sophia Roselle's house.
Yes, it was.
We brought up Sierra Jean in our set.
It's all connected, right?
And we're praying to God, year before, if you're listening, come do our show. You are the last piece we need.
That's awesome.
But yes, I was, thinking back on that this morning. I was out this morning before we came in to do tapings, and I was driving back through kind of like sort of the like kind of, I guess, countryside part of like Brentwood area and like, kind of that outer rim of Nashville. And I was listening to Shifting States, and I'm literally traveling from like the middle of nowhere back into kind of like a more populated space. And it just kind of, it was the perfect soundtrack to that. And
my gosh, I love it.
It also simultaneously took me back to 2-3 years ago now when that came out. So tell us a little bit about that project, you're writing behind that, because then I want to hear a little bit of the ways you've kind of grown into some of your newer stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Shifting States was fun. I loved coming up with, the pieces to that EP. I'd never done an EP before. It was my first one. I really just focused on singles.
And it's a concept piece.
It is, which I love stuff like that, and I want to do something like that again, where it's something that links all together and conveys a larger message. And I'd written a song called Tennessee when I believe I was a freshman. And the song was about leaving a relationship in California and moving to Nashville and finding a love that you did not know was even possible. You're coming from high school like, oh, I just had a great 2-year relationship, and, this is the best thing ever. I'm like, how am I ever going to find something as good as that? And just that naivety there. And then getting to Nashville, and I had a relationship that in the end didn't end well, but it got me a great song. Easy Love in Tennessee was the name. It did not end up being easy in the end. But the rest of the songs on that EP tell a story of really my life kind of 2 to 3 years after high school and into college. And I produced those with a friend of mine in California. His name's Alec West. Incredible guitarist, instrumentalist. We sat down in Logic in California, and in one summer we did all 5 of those songs, which back then for me it was like taking months to finish one song. So I was like, we're doing it. And I'm still really proud of that album. I definitely look back on it and I'm like, wow, that production is something else. But there's something magical about having a time capsule of my life, my relationships, the growth that I went through, and also my sound at that time. Whereas I feel like I'm better refining what I want my genre and style to be now. But I've left that music up there because I've had multiple people like, don't take it down, don't take it down. And I'm like, okay, I'll leave it up there. Because it is still very, authentic folk styles that I'm leaning into more now. So yeah, that's the story on that. Yeah,
there's certainly that like folk layer to it. And then there's like, I think like some little hints of pop and rock, like just enough to kind of catch your ear. And I mean, and again, as as I said earlier, I'm sure you've grown a lot since then, and we're going to get into some of your newer stuff, but just for what it's worth, yes, that EP definitely holds up and has held up.
Thank you.
But
yeah, it's always interesting looking back at old music.
Even 3 months ago, even Widow's Wall, my most recent single, I'm very proud of it, but you're looking back and you're like, wow, what's my next step? What's going to be the next best thing? And
well, let's talk about Widow's Wall. Even going from this EP you created about high school into college to now, you talked about kind of finding your sound and all of that. How does that all go into the creation of Widow's Wall?
Yeah, so that song was written in end of June. So it was kind of in that first batch of co-writes I was doing after graduation. And the idea for that song, and really it came from the title, which is a name of a beach in my hometown. So Morro Bay, it's between San Francisco and Los Angeles, but it's about 4 hours between the two. So right in the center of California, and very unique, beautiful area on the beach. We have a giant rock. It's a landmark, like a gigantic rock called Morro Rock. And most people here are like, someone who knows it is like, that's a huge rock. But people who don't know it are like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean a big rock? But behind, on the back side of the rock, there's this beautiful beach with a jetty. And it encloses the bay where all the fishermen boats go out to sea. And fun fact, I lived on a boat for 6 months when I was in middle school. On and off, staying at my mom's, staying at my dad's. And it was like one of the best times of my life, just living on a boat. I had my guitar, I was writing music, I was paddleboarding, surfing, and it was right on the bay where it's called Widow Walls is the name of the beach. And I was there in not this December, but the December before. And I was like, you know what? That would be a great title for a song. I'm like, I don't even know what that song would be about, but I'm going to write it down and either try write it myself or find someone who wants to write this title with me. And I had started like a version on my own, and I met an artist named Anna Bates through one of my sync classes. And she's incredible lyricist, incredible writer. We sat down, we wrote that song, and I finished it and was like, wow, like my vision was completed with this song. And it was something like that personally I felt like I needed to write and needed to complete. And that song was finished in June. And then I was like, well, if I'm going to get content at Widow's Wall when I'm home, I've got to get it done before I go back in December. So I worked with a producer his name's Justin Collars, and we met through NSAI. I was on a top 40 playlist for one of their quarters, and it was a great way to just, get exposure, meet some producers, and we've become like great friends, great collaborators. He's doing my next single as well. So he helped me as well complete this vision I wanted like Celtic influences, have a fiddle, really, really go folk with it, because I was like, this could be super like Hozier, it could be like very Joni Mitchell. We could combine the two and make something that hasn't been made before. And that process was just so fun. And now I'm so happy it's out there for people.
Yeah. And I mean, it sounds great. I hear all of those kind of influences in it, and then, still retains that element of kind of that like originality. And congrats on the success of that. Now I'm curious, just because you kind of said earlier about like next steps or whatever, when you're talking about a song that was written, 8 months ago now, probably 9 by the time this actually gets out to the public. What would you have changed about it if you could change something? Or is it just kind of its own thing and it has to stay as it is?
Looking back, I think that this song is just something special the way it is. I don't think it's not necessarily a hit. I've been promoting it on socials and trying to find the right audience, but I do feel like it's a very niche song. There's a part of me that's like, I want to get more music out there that is a little bit more digestible first, but I am so grateful that the song is there, because you can have hit songs in the future and people will go back to that song and discover it. So really I wouldn't change anything. I think now my process is to start writing a little bit more, not necessarily pop, but having this folk that has these catchy, accessible melodies, like if Maggie Rogers, Noah Kahan, Lizzie McAlpine, they're all still very alternative music and folk, but they're at a point where, someone might not be a folk fan, but they're a Noah Kahan fan, and they're gonna love that kind of music because it hits home, it's got a great chorus, and that's my goal right now. And I've got a single coming out. Don't have a date yet, but it's getting mastered this week. Ooh. It's called Lifeline, and I could not be more excited for this song. It feels more like me than anything I've done, and that's really thanks to Justin. We wrote the song with Sophie. So Sophia Roselle, the three of us, we all sat down, and it was just us meeting Justin for the first time, and he was wanting to get into writing more, and I had this chorus idea that was all about letting go, like a metaphor for a relationship, that there's a kite that you have to let go of the string because they're up in the clouds. They're not meeting you on the ground to take this relationship seriously. And that was the concept and chorus I came in with. Finished the song. Justin produced a demo within a couple days, and I fell in love with the demo. He had this awesome 80s style synth in there, and I grew up on 80s music with my dad, which most people would be like, what? You write folk music. I'm like, you better be ready because I'm going to bring in some of these 80s synths and you're going to be like, what is this? But it's going to be great. And so that's where I am right now. And this song it's coming together as still being authentically folk, very Death Cab for Cutie, Manchester Orchestra, Mumford and Sons. But then all of a sudden you hit this bridge and you've got 80s synth coming in, Kate Bush style. And
oh man,
it's awesome. I'm so excited for it.
Well, we love 80s music.
Awesome.
And
awesome.
I definitely love folk music thing. You're definitely speaking our language. So we cannot wait to hear about that one.
Yay.
You also semi-recently had Planting Seeds. Mm-hmm. And that song got some pretty cool success and attention too. So let's hear about that one.
Yeah, Planting Seeds is another special one. I wrote that song in my last semester at Belmont. And it was a song it literally popped out. And I was like, wow.
Those are the best ones.
I had not written a song that had come out so easily like that in a really long time. And it was just a subconscious download. And I was sitting with my guitar, wrote it in one sitting on my own, and I was like, I had been doing a lot of co-writes. So now I try, I'm like, I got to make sure I'm consistently, in a kind of more private, sacred space, writing on my own for more emotional catharsis and processing and all of that. Because that's what I love is I've been able to bring that comfortability with co-writers into the room, and that's what I was missing when I was in my first 2 years at Belmont. I was like, I don't like co-writing very much, especially a lot of these people are students that I haven't really met. They're not friends, and now it's this is getting into a room and you're making music with other people. It's like hanging out, but better. You're creating something together, and now I'm able to be in the room and tell them something horrible that happened to me the week before and not be embarrassed to say this is exactly how I'm feeling, or say something that you might not want to say out loud, but then everyone's like, thank God you said that because I felt that too at one point. And then sure enough, that's the song that we write.
And there's such value in that. I think in the here and now, people just want to feel connected. Mm-hmm. People want to feel like they belong. And a lot of the times there's that fearfulness of being kind of exiled from the group, that now nobody's sharing anything personal. So then you're not creating that common ground. So there's a lot of value in doing that. Yeah. And I'm glad to hear that that's been a successful point in your co-writes.
Oh yeah. It's been really just musically changing, personally has changed my relationships with people and with other creators. And with Planting Seeds, though, I was saying, is going back to still having those moments on your own where you're not trying to write for anything. It's really just sitting there and dumping out emotions into your guitar and writing down what you're feeling. And Planting Seeds was that. And I just but didn't really have a direction with the song, and then it just came out. And I was like, that's great. And it turned into being a lot more than I thought it would. And when I released it, I really tried to push this importance and the lesson of looking at life with a positive perspective and being finding resilience and growth within yourself, within your relationships. And so that was just an anthem song for me that last year at Belmont, which was special. And I feel like it has been for some other people, and I hope it keeps finding people who need songs like that.
Well, and we're so happy that it's been that level of success and that you've found this song as it kind of just came to you, and that others have been able to embrace it as well. And speaking of planting seeds, as we wrap up here, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to who's making music in the area, or maybe any music that you're listening to right now, even if it's from a big artist that you just think deserves some attention?
Yeah, I would say Tiffany Johnson is one of my co-writers. She's coming out with a song that we wrote together. Is going to be the title track, most likely, of her EP, which I'm excited about. She's doing amazing things in like the indie pop landscape. And then my roommate, Ava Ware, she's amazing, Ava Massey. And she has some awesome singles she's working on with producers that Sophie was working with. Griffin, she talked a little bit about him. I'm planning on working with Griffin. He seems, to be doing some great work with some of these other artists that are in the pop, but also like into more of indie folk as well. So excited about that. Also, kind of bigger artists I've really gotten into. Her name's Abby Holiday, and she is a Nashville-based artist. She's on tour right now, but she's been a big inspiration, especially for my song Lifeline. It's been the production side. It's been great.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. We'll definitely have to go check those out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, do you want to give us a little taste of Lifeline?
Absolutely.
You've got a guitar there. Go for it.
Yes, I do. Okay, here we are. 10 feet up, you're not coming down. Too bad I'm planted on solid ground. Out of line, being pulled around. Calling now, you don't hear a sound. No, you don't hear a sound. It's time. Now that you're high as a kite, I should let go with a string. It's fine, right? If I don't chase the lifeline that ties you back to me.
Awesome.
There it is.
I'm so excited for that one to come out.
Yeah, that one's cool.
Me too. It should be out sometime in April. So
listen for that next month then, Mixing Room audience. All right, well, while you've got the guitar out, is there anything else you want to tease for us? Maybe one more upcoming release or something you got in the works?
Yeah, so this one's called High Pain Tolerance. I'm considering it releasing it as my third single this year. Written with Tiffany Johnson, and I had the idea for the song, and I was like, you know what? This song's got to be about feeling like nothing is ever going to top, in a bad way, top the painful breakup that you've had, because that was like the first worst breakup you had, and nothing's going to be as bad as that. So that was the idea for the song, and here it is. Don't you remember I could barely walk out the door, say goodbye? You had me kissing the floor, couldn't find it in myself to be alone. It felt like fire speaking your name. That first heartbreak's the worst kind of flame, ain't it, babe? I got you to thank for my high pain tolerance. Go ahead and hit me where it hurts, and I'll stand my ground. No point in crying now. Once the fire's turned to ash, nothing hurts quite as bad. I've got high pain tolerance.
Oh, man.
Dude. That is what I'm talking about.
Somehow I like that one even more.
Oh my
That's
God.
so good.
That's what I want.
You got to cut that.
I'm planning on it.
If Griffin doesn't like it, you tell us. We'll give him a call.
All right. What a treat. Thank you for sharing those with us, and for being on the podcast today. It's been such a pleasure. We really appreciate you coming on here.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. It's so good to see you.
Of course.
Chat about music. It's the best thing you can do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we're looking forward to those songs seeing the light of day soon.
Yeah, I'm excited. It'll be great. Follow me, TikTok, Instagram. I'm posting a lot, just creating buzz around my new music and collaborations I'm doing.
Yeah.
And our followers will link her pages in the description of both the audio and video versions of this show. So go ahead and give her a follow. Obviously, she's got great stuff out already and even more amazing stuff in the works.
Yep. You just heard 2 incredible reasons why you should go follow. So
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Of course. And that concludes today's episode of The Mixing Room.
if you've enjoyed what you've heard today, you already know what to do. Go ahead and rate us 5 stars on Spotify. If you're watching the video on YouTube, go ahead and like the video. Comment down below. We love hearing from you guys. And of course, subscribe if you want to hear more.
Yeah, we talked about studios at the top of the show. Let us know your favorite spaces to record, whether that's at home or, at somewhere as iconic as Abbey Road. And hey, check us out on social media for more content from The Mixing Room. You're going to find us at Mixing Room Podcast on Instagram and TikTok, and we'll be getting some of that up to YouTube Shorts as well. Thanks again for watching, and we look forward to seeing you next time in The Mixing Room. Until then, I'm Daniel.
I'm Trent.
Have a great one, y'all.